Hey everyone, welcome to the Arsaholics podcast on a Tuesday.
It's
Are we on
Monday,
Tuesday? It's Monday. I'm sorry,
Great
mate.
start.
I've just absolutely lost it. I mean, it's the order of games. It's having a game on a Monday and on a Friday night. It's completely just destroyed
Yeah, I
any
wasn't even sure
notion
what day of the week it was. Yeah, today I can confirm today is Monday,
Yeah, today is
and
Monday.
we play tomorrow.
We play tomorrow, and by the time many of you would have listened to this podcast, it would have already been the game tomorrow, and so we're not going to spend much time talking about the Leeds Cup game, but what we are going to do is revel on an amazing Friday night. Okay, I am still buzzing from what was just a glorious victory. I'm also still hanging from the aftermath of that. I mean, how are you feeling, Aaron?
I'm good. I'm good. I, for various reasons, didn't go as hard as you did, but it sounded like you guys had a great night on Friday. After the game, I did join you for a couple, but no, it was wicked. I think Friday was just we. I've been saying for a while that at some point we need to start delivering more than just results and start delivering a performance. And this just felt like that performance where not only did we win, but we performed really well. And then, yeah, I think Friday night, Friday night confuses you when you record a podcast. But the good thing is when you want to celebrate a win, it's ideal circumstances because you don't usually have much to do the next day, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll listen. We'll properly get onto the performance. But we are. Oh, can you hear my dog barking? Sorry, dog's going crazy.
He wants to come on the podcast.
Clearly, yeah. We do the Arseholics podcast. We do really like to bring you the match day experience. We really like to talk about everything around that. And a big part of that, especially on a Friday night, was the festivities that happened pre-game, post-game. We almost did I feel I did anyway, did a big tour of the area almost, because I actually started pre-game drinking around Finsbury Park, which I don't normally do. So I was with my mate Jack at the World's End in Finsbury Park. It's a different, it's kind of one of those things that if you come from Highbury and Islington Station, and if that's the station that you always go to, you basically never end up in that part of town in relation to the stadium. But then post-game, we did the kind of exact opposite direction, I suppose, which was really interesting, right? Because it's a Friday night, and I think what we decided, we're buzzing like the rest of the stadium. What we decided was we would walk down Holloway Road towards Highbury and Islington Station, and then drop in somewhere for a quick drink. The pubs were heaving, though, weren't they, Aaron? I was like,
yeah, obviously everyone had the same idea,
exact same idea.
And no, it was good because with one, I think people are much more open to carrying on and celebrating. And I also think generally this season just feels a bit different in terms of the vibe at home games.
Yeah.
And I think people are just a lot more either excited to go to games. And I don't know if that's because of lockdown and people have missed it, or the fact that, this team is a bit more exciting maybe than previous years, or even just the fact that, we don't play twice a week anymore. And actually, we see each other once every 2-3 weeks, and sometimes when you have an international break, you only go to the Emirates once a month. So every game feels a lot more like an occasion now. But interestingly, I remember you saying to me that it felt a lot different compared to Monday night, which you went to, right?
Yeah, Monday night was different because I think there was weather that also played a part in that. It was cold, it was wet, etc. But it was a Monday as well. It was a Monday night, so it was palpably different. I definitely felt the atmosphere was different. But just echoing your point generally, I do agree with that. And I think in terms of the different vibe this season, I think it is because of all the reasons that you mentioned. I feel like one thing that gets underplayed a lot is this growth story that everyone feels a part of that we haven't necessarily felt a part of in many years now. Actually, this is a very young team. It's a young manager. It's this evolution. It's this it's something where it feels like there was somewhat of a great reset, and we're part of that. And I think everyone in the stadium feels that they are growing and they are part of this journey. And I don't think you necessarily get that if you are not going to games. I think it's a vibe that you seem to feel that as a collective of people who are coming game by game and seeing this growth. It's really fun to be a part of. And I think Friday, like you say, I think because of the performance, it was a great performance. And it was Friday night. It was kind of just this real big. This was worth it. See, we knew this was coming. We believed and we delivered. And we certainly did celebrate that long into the night. We were down towards Angel in the end. We actually got our first drink only around 11:30, I think. And given the game finished around 10, I mean, I think that was...
Yeah, I think the other thing was we noticed is that they closed the station for a bit. There's a massive queue outside Highbury and Islington Station. So I wonder if that meant even more people decided to, just go and stay for an extra drink rather than queue up for the train. So yeah, it was fun. It was a fun night.
And plenty of... as we got to Angel and started drinking in various pubs there, I remember getting into lots and lots of conversations with Arsenal fans about the game. It was really interesting, actually, hearing so many different, lots of quite diverse views. There was obviously most people, well, everyone was very happy with the result. I had some really good, interesting conversations about Lacazette's benefit in the team, like how, what he brought, and some people who weren't completely bought into what Odegaard is bringing the team. There was some really, really fun conversations. Another fun conversation was one that we had with Mize. So Mize was in Spain. He was in a great place, getting absolutely hammered, and having some video calls with him. We did try and go live on Instagram as well, which didn't last very long because none of us could hear anything. So that was a bit of a failed attempt. So apologies if you were any of the three people who did join us on Instagram live. But look, mate, whatever the case, I guess we can, point is, everyone felt great. It was a really great night, drinking around Arsenal. And I certainly, I think I got home around 3:30 in the morning. It was a real big night. And let's talk about why we were in such a good mood. I mean, what this performance, tell me, like you sort of touched on it. How does this performance rank with every performance this season?
I think it was the best. I know Spurs at home was, in terms of what was at stake, there was far more at stake against Spurs. But in terms of how we played, I think we played really, really well, both going forward and defensively. And, we were there. I don't know how it looked on TV, but Villa didn't have a chance at all. We just completely nullified them as a team with our way we defended, the way our intensity on the ball, the way we pressed them, the way we won back the ball, the way we kept them penned back in the box, with the way we attacked. And we scored and created chances at regular intervals throughout the game. It wasn't just the usual start well for 10 minutes and fade. We started well, and then we just kept it going continuously. So I think this is up there with one of the best all-round 90-minute performances under Mikel Arteta so far.
Completely agree. And I think we saw against Palace, we said that first 20 minutes was okay. And then there was a drop-off. For me, the performance level in the first 20 minutes against Villa was even better, and crucially was just consistently executed. And it's interesting because Dean Smith made comments after the game where he rightfully acknowledged it's very rare sometimes in the Premier League where you get another manager who goes, listen, the other team were just way better than us. It's very rare when that happens, right? But he didn't shy away from saying, effectively, not only did the best team won, but I felt what was very interesting was he talked about the physicality of the Arsenal side. He seemed to emphasize that element. He was just like, physically, we were beaten by a team who were physically dominant over us, essentially. I found that an interesting thing to say. I mean, what do you think about that? Did you get that feeling?
Yeah, I felt like a large part of that was down to, I think, two main things. One was the addition of Lacazette into the team. He really put himself about. He was in and around the tackles. He was, to use a classic phrase, he was quite streetwise in the fact that he kind of went down and got a few Villa players booked, and was winning, like constantly like up against the ref and like trying to win things. And I thought Villa were actually quite dirty themselves, but where they couldn't really match our intensity, so they just had to resort to fouling players. And also then the midfield, the partnership of Partey and Lokonga, who up until now, I don't think we'd really used Lokonga effectively. But it seemed like he was a lot more central this time. And that meant that A, we could get the best out of Lokonga because he's not drifting over to the left as much. But then B, it meant that we could also get the best out of Thomas Partey. I thought he was very good as well. And then on top of that, I thought the back four, I thought Tavares was lively. I thought the centre backs were both really, really good. And so was Tomiyasu. And I think it was just a defense. We've always had the defense being good. And I think that's not news to us, but we did defend well as a team. And on top of that, then going forward, again, Lacazette was instrumental in just being that link-up play, dropping deep, going forward. Aubameyang was lively. And then, what can you say about Smith Rowe, who was on another level as well?
Totally. Can we just spend a second talking about that defense? Because I feel like we've spoken about defense a number of times this season already, because actually, the new look, the new back five, we've been very, very complimentary. But we have said that Kieran Tierney hasn't necessarily, been at the heights going forward. Hasn't necessarily delivered going forward in the way that we've come to expect of him. And so we saw Nuno Tavares come in. I think the narrative was that Tierney's picked up a knock because Tierney wasn't on the bench. But I felt, I felt there was no element in drop from defensive stability based on that change. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that at this point in time, Kieran Tierney is probably a better defensive left back than Nuno Tavares. Nuno Tavares is a younger player, he's still pretty raw. But before the game, when people were asking what I thought was going to happen in Villa game, I backed this up by keeping Aaron Ramsdale and Ben White in my dream team. I genuinely had no concerns from a defensive standpoint. I genuinely believe that we would control them. And I know that Villa have got some fairly good players in attack. They spent money on Buendia. They spent money on Bailey. They've got, Ollie Watkins, who scored twice against us last season, in the same fixture, I think. But there's something about our defense that for me in my mind, I couldn't, even against Palace when we conceded a couple of goals, I still don't put that down to the defenders. And I felt vindicated, actually, because watching how they performed, particularly in the first half, I mean, Aaron, and I think we had 13 shots in the first half. Villa had zero in a half of football. How much of that do you think is down to that, to the defenders?
I'm not sure how much of it is down to the individual defenders themselves. I think there's two things. One is that they look, the fact that we can play a consistent back four and the same goalkeeper, although we didn't really chop and change goalkeepers much last season, but the consistent back five, you can say, is hugely beneficial. Last season, we always changed. We weren't sure who our best centre-back pairing was. We weren't sure who our best right-back was. And it just meant that we had Kieran Tierney plus three others. And then Leno, Kieran Tierney, Leno, and three others. Now it's, who the back five is. Arteta knows who the back five is. We know who the back five is. And it's very clear that unless there's an injury, those five players plus Partey will start every single game. And that just means that they figure each other out. They learn more about each other. They know where each other's going to be. They cover for each other. That is just a lot more efficient. And the other thing is, if Kieran Tierney picked up a minor knock last season, it would have been a disaster. So fair play to the board, Edu, Arteta, for identifying a backup right back, which is a really hard position to fill because backup left back, which is a really hard position to fill because you need someone who can come in without much preparation and actually still do a job, but also still be happy to play second fiddle. And he was really good. I thought he offered something slightly different because I think he's a lot more direct than Kieran Tierney, perhaps. I don't think he's definitely not as good a left back, but I think he just picked his moments where he said, I'm just going to run and run really fast and hard into the box and then get the ball. And I'm just going to smash it as hard as I can and try and get it across the box. I don't think he ever found his man when he did try and square it. But every time he got in the box, he was just, I'm going to run to the touchline and square it. And that's all I'm going to do. And because he was so direct, he just gave them something to worry about. And he's quite a tricky player. So,
and he got in shooting positions a lot. I think I can remember at least 2 or 3 times that he tried to shoot. I mean, he could probably got to work on that, but the fact that he was in those positions is really encouraging.
So yeah, I was really pleased with that, and I think just generally as a team, we look like an athletic team full of runners who all over the pitch are willing to work hard, and that goes all the way up to Aubameyang. Aubameyang's still working really hard defensively, tracking back, closing down. He's being really efficient. Lacazette came in, was doing the same, dropping deep, going up front. Smith Rowe, Saka, Lokonga, Partey, every single person in that team put a shift in, and that was really, really encouraging.
Yeah, and for me, I think when you have a setup like you just described, where everyone is chipping in, when you do have a Kieran Tierney that has to step away and you put a Nuno Tavares in, the net impact is much less, right? Because everyone's pulling in a shift. You're not so reliant on individual defensive qualities coming in. You've got a collective effort that's going on, and I really felt that. We didn't lose anything defensively, and that's not a criticism of Tierney. That's more of a compliment of the system that's been created and this kind of familiarity, like that you described. That we have a core bunch. They know what they're good at. They know each other's movements, their paces, their strength, etc. Very encouraging. How would you compare the performances of Partey and Lokonga versus what we saw on Monday?
Yeah, completely different. I mean, I think I've always been quite open saying that I've not really been impressed with Lokonga that much. Especially compared to, I think, maybe you guys and social media, generally very full of praise. I still see him as being very, very raw. I think, very much like Guendouzi when he came in, I was like, okay, there's a lot of, bits of good things here, but especially defensively, I wasn't that impressed. But I think when I look back now, I think that was largely down to, I read a great piece online. I can't remember who wrote it, I think, which was basically analyzing what Lokonga was doing in this game versus what he was doing on Monday. And on Monday and in previous games, he was very much doing what Granit Xhaka was doing, which is coming across to the left-hand side and dropping deep. Now, that isn't so good because Lokonga is very right-footed. And it just means that when he does that, you don't get the best out of him. And it has the other downside of leaving Thomas Partey on his own, where he tends to struggle a bit. But it seemed like on Friday, he was very much playing as a central midfielder, as the partner to Thomas Partey. And, I'm no tactical expert, but it very much looked like those two worked really hard and they closed, they covered for each other, they interchanged with each other, and it just got the best out of both of them. So, really, really impressed by both of them on Friday. And I hope, there might be situations where we do need someone to drop in back into that left-hand side. But for whatever reason, if we can keep them in the middle to get the best out of them, I think that would be ideal.
This left-hand side thing poses an interesting question, doesn't it? Because Pepe not being in the side meant that Saka could go over to that right-hand side. And Emile Smith-Rowe could play on that left-hand side. And Emile Smith-Rowe, he's really coming into form as a box-to-box player, someone who's putting in, a real shift up and down. And for me, it was really, really helpful covering in some of those areas on the left-hand side of the pitch that maybe Saka doesn't feel as comfortable kind of operating in because he prefers playing on the right. Which I guess leads us to a broader question of, why did it go so well versus other games? Is this a case where this is just natural progression, essentially? These players, the more they play together, the better they are going to be. Or do we think that this 4-2-3-1 with the personnel that we had on the pitch is perhaps the right ingredients to make this cocktail taste nice?
I think it's probably dependent on the opposition in the game. And I'm sure this was a very deliberate tactical plan which worked, rather than a case of, like Arteta, Lacazette's playing really well, let's play him. Although I did remember Arteta saying, I'm not sure if it was pre-game or post-game, where he said basically when Lacazette came on against Palace, he looked really good, and that's when he decided that he needs to start. So maybe it's a bit of both, that actually saying Ødegaard probably isn't being as effective for now. let's play Lacazette there. And also the system can generally work quite well because it was a 4-2-3-1, but at times it was a 4-4-2 and both of them went up top. So I wouldn't be surprised if we stuck with it against Leicester on Saturday, because I think it gets the best out of more players. I think Smith Rowe is, he's so good that he can play anywhere, but I think having him in a wide position certainly gets the most out of him. And then I think it's just a case of, I think that front three, Aubameyang, Saka on the right and Smith Rowe on the left, is our best front three. And then I think it's just a question of, do you play Lacazette or do you play Odegaard in that number 10 role? So, and then the players behind them, like I said earlier, kind of pick themselves.
What I'm actually willing to accept in that scenario is that it doesn't necessarily have to be a black and white answer. It doesn't necessarily have to be an answer where we say Laka is a better number 10 than Odegaard is. I think they are two players which clearly offer different things. They've got very different skill sets.
Yeah.
Okay. And a different situation might call for a different one of them. And in a game, we might think that one way is the way to go. And if that doesn't work, then we change it up. And I think that's okay. I'm okay with that, right? You know, I can make peace with that.
As long as we win, I don't really care, to be honest. I certainly think Lacazette played really well. And if you look purely on the basis of performance, he certainly deserves more minutes now than Odegaard does, who hasn't really started the season that well. If you look at kind of how we know he can play. But if Odegaard came back inside, I wouldn't be like upset, for example. So yeah, it very much depends. I very much trust Arteta to make that choice based on the opposition we're playing, who's playing well, and who gets the most out of the rest of the team and the rest of the players on the pitch.
Yeah, and right now you'd have to say that overall in the banter, everything, like Arteta's making more good choices than he's making bad ones. If we look at even what the form table suggests, there's only Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal, I believe, that haven't lost in the last 6 games. In fact, I think that it's the three of us, the only 3 teams who haven't lost in the last 5 games. And this is good company to be in. Those are 2 excellent teams.
If you look at the last 2 performances, in the space of a week, we saw improvement and we saw a trend in the right direction. And there were some clear flaws on Monday. It looked like they were addressed on Friday. And I think as fans, that's all we really ask for is, we accept that this team isn't going to win the Premier League this season. But what we do want to see is mistakes corrected. And, we said, okay, we aren't creating enough chances in the first half of the first few games of the season, and the attack looked a bit blunt. That looked like it was fixed. We never really had issues with the defense, but that's continuing to be stable. So as long as we have more Aston Villa at home performances rather than the Crystal Palace at home performances, then I think generally people will start to get quite excited and quite appreciative of the project, as you call it.
Yeah, completely. And I think, when we have a performance like we did, and we're doing a podcast after that, I think we can afford to just really, really focus on the positives, right? Because we're going to have plenty of games to focus on negatives. So I'm going to continue to do that. And Emile Smith Rowe. So, I mean, we really have to call him out, don't we? Listen, we're an Arsenal podcast. We're Arsenal season ticket holders. We're probably liable to be a bit biased sometimes. Jamie Carragher isn't an Arsenal supporter. He's not an Arsenal season ticket holder. He's an ex-Liverpool player who said on Sky that he believes that Emile Smith Rowe is the best player in the Premier League right now at running with the ball.
Yeah, it's quite a claim, isn't it? But would you disagree with him? I guess that's the question.
I think there's a form question to be there. I think Smith Rowe is, in good form. I think I'm very hesitant to really make statements about Arsenal players in terms of they are the best at this or best at that until we actually achieve something.
That's fair. I think that's very fair.
And so it's kind of like, if we take an example, right? Like, Mason Mount scores a hat-trick against Norwich. I have to be honest, like I've I've gone back and forth between whether I think Mason Mount is that good a player. Last season, there were times where I thought he was a very good player. He didn't really make much of an impact for England. And this season, I really thought he's been all that good. But at the same time, he is still a player who's put in assist in the Champions League final and has a Champions League winners medal. And he's still a player who's part of a team who may go on to win the Premier League. Until our players start doing that, I'm very hesitant of calling them the best at anything.
It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Like, who cares if they're the best or they're the 5th best or even the 10th best? If he's performing like he is, that's irrelevant. As long as he's performing and Arsenal are winning, then that's all that matters. But look, let's not do him too much disservice. He is playing very, very well, and he, in my opinion, if you look at when he came in against Chelsea, that game where I can't remember when it was, last year, 2 years ago, when he got his first start, and he literally transformed this team. And yes, he's had blips here and there, but
like you would expect a player of that age to have.
Exactly. But he has consistently performed really well. And I think you take him out of this team and we are a much, much worse team. And that's because simply, and he's playing not because he's a young player, but he is playing because he is one of the best players that we have in our squad right now.
Yeah. 100%. You can't argue with that. I think you made a comment earlier, which was exactly right. He can play in so many different positions. Anywhere he plays, he'll give you a big performance. He was challenged by Arteta last season to score more goals. Arteta said that's something that he needs to work on. He needs to get his numbers up. There were some fans of ours who didn't react too well to Arteta publicly saying that. I was confused as to why they reacted so badly. Jamie Carragher also seems to have said that, to ESI's sort of, made the comment around, just that's an area of his game that if he can build on, he will very quickly be a top player if he can add that. And we're seeing that now, aren't we? Like, he really, he's getting into those positions. He's being direct. He's backing himself. When you're going to do that, when you do those things, you'll get a bit of luck every now and again. His goal was a little bit lucky, but it was also a product of him winning the ball back at the other end of the pitch.
Yeah, really deep and legging it up the other side of the pitch. Yeah.
We saw the link-up play, didn't we, between Ober and him, again, like it happened against Tottenham. I mean, do you think that's going to be a feature of us going forward?
I hope so. And I thought also the layoff that Ober played into Smith Rowe was top class as well. Yeah. But I don't know if you saw Arteta's post-match comments, but he also mentioned something about Smith Rowe. I can't remember the exact phrase he used, but he said he's changed his lifestyle, or he's made changes to the way he lives his life.
That's interesting.
I don't know what that is, whether it's, less partying, better diet, maybe he's cut out the rice and curry or something. Whatever he's doing is clearly working. So if on the off chance that Emil Smith Rowe is listening, stick with it, mate.
Yeah, and I think there's a few final things to say about the game. We score 3 goals, and Emi Martinez is named in Team of the Week. And I the only conclusion I want to draw from that is if you score
Team of the Week,
yeah, he even posted it on his own Instagram. Listen, if you're a goalkeeper and you're in Team of the Week and your team has conceded 3 goals, I think that just shows the kind of dominance the other team have.
Yeah, but I also thought he was at fault. He could have done better for the first goal.
Maybe.
And yeah, he saved a penalty, but
he made a good save from Saka, although I think Saka should have finished that. But
I think that's generous. I don't think he was.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone else was rubbish. I mean, David De Gea was definitely not getting it this week, put it that way.
And we are going to talk about Man United a bit later. We absolutely are. I think I would still say that, our team is not clinical yet. And I really do feel like if we can put in a performance like this, like we did against Villa, and actually are a bit more clinical, have a day where that comes together, I think we could really give a team a pasting, because, it felt like if we were clinical, then, it could have got a bit messy against Villa. But, whatever the case, it's a win. It's 3-1. We played extremely well. I would agree with what you said at the beginning. I think it's the best performance we've had this season. credit to the manager, credit to all the players, credit to the squad. It was a squad thing. It was a squad victory. And I'm really, really encouraged now as we look to our next couple of games. So, and if we start looking, and let's just do that now. So, we're not going to talk much about Leeds because, as I said, everyone may have actually watched the Leeds game. The Leeds game may have happened by the time people listen to this pod.
We might have lost.
We may have lost, but I guess all that's left, all that we can probably say about that is likely to see some of the players who haven't been getting minutes. So maybe Odegaard will start actually.
Yeah, Leno probably.
Leno, Maitland-Niles, those guys. It'd be interesting to see if Balogun plays or if it's Eddie that plays.
Do you think Lacazette will play?
No, I don't.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't think he'll play. I think after coming on as a sub on Monday and then after playing basically a full game against Villa, and I don't think well, and I think he deserves a break. I think the amount that how hard he worked. So let's see, and I wonder whether Arteta will really look at it and kind of go, I've really just got to use my squad that game. Like if he loses against Leeds at home, playing a second string, yes, okay, you're going to have the normal kind of Arsenal Twitter fallout or whatever. Yeah. But the level-headed fans, will look at it and go, we've got Leicester coming up this weekend. That is a priority.
Go on. No, I actually don't think it's as much about resting players, but it's more about actually needing to give the other players some minutes. So we have a week off between most games. So I think if we had to play a first team, I don't think we're gonna put them at serious risk of injury or anything. I don't think it's this is one midweek game. We have one we'd get midweek game every month nowadays. It's so rare. But
this is a rare combination itself, right? Because this is 3 games in 8 days. Because we had the Monday, Friday, and Tuesday.
Yeah, right? Fair enough. But then we've got Saturday. Either way, I think we could get through that fairly easily if we needed to. I don't think it's a huge issue. I think the bigger issue is there are a lot of squad players, especially the defenders, that aren't getting any minutes whatsoever because we've almost now decided these are the 13, 14 players we're going to use in Premier League games.
That's a good point.
And actually, it's more important to have people ready and willing to step in. And there's a risk that some of these players might not be match fit because, players like Martinelli, players like Balogun, Eddie Nketiah, Maitland-Niles, who they came on, doesn't really get that many minutes. Odegaard. These players need to be ready to step up if and when we get an injury. So that is what I would prioritize more than just actually needing to rest players.
Yeah, on the defender's point, right? Because of what we discussed before and the fact that it feels like, we've got a good system going on, and I think there's good habits and behaviors that are going on as a collective. If Tierney is out or if Tomiyasu picks up a knock or whatever, if it's those guys in isolation, I think I'd feel okay. I'm very, very nervous about the idea of Ben White or Gabriel getting injured, to be honest.
Yeah. Ben White, Gabriel and Tomiyasu, I think just leave them out. It's not worth it.
No, it isn't. I mean, but what do you think? Do you think that Murray and Holding will be looking at what's happened, be looking at the fact that actually those two have established themselves as our number one and number two, and rightfully so. They're just a fantastic partnership already. Full stop.
Yeah.
Do you think they will raise their game? Do you think Holding and no?
No. I think they might try to, but I don't think they will. Do I think they'll raise their game enough to get into the Premier League squad? No. Just even thinking about a back four of Cedric, Holding, Marie, and probably be Tavares or maybe someone else at left back, Maitland-Niles maybe. That is throwback to a bad time, a bad period for us. So
I completely agree.
Let's see. Hopefully the opposition, maybe Leeds might rest some players as well and rotate a bit. They've got a few injuries. I think Rafinha went off injured and Bamford's still out, I think. So no, I mean, let's not spend too much time on it. But yeah, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the squad players. It'll be something different. But at the same time, let's give other players minutes and actually make players like Pepe, players like Martinelli, players like Odegaard if he plays, Eddie, Balogun, they should be pushing to be like, okay, well, if it is 0-0 in the next Premier League game, I want to be the player that comes on.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's what this game is for.
I completely agree. I mean, like, and Martinelli, you feel is knocking, but probably realizes he has to knock a little bit harder, because it would have been very easy to jump on the manager if we hadn't have won against Villa, and say, why didn't you give Martinelli a chance after he was also quite energetic? But Martinelli has to look at it and go, like, I've got to work really hard to get in this team, and this is what top level football is about. I think you're right. I think he'll play on Tuesday, and let's see how that goes. Let's look at Leicester, mate. So, Leicester's the early kickoff on the Saturday. We're away from home. We're on a decent run. Leicester have done okay over the last 3 games. I think they're unbeaten in 3, but they've also had a bit of a weird season-ish. Like, they're not really defending that well. They are finding goals from different areas. Patson Daka's like, he's starting to step up, and that looks okay. But we've got a decent record at the King Power Stadium in recent years. I think we've got some quite good memories there. We won last time, and
3-1, I think, right?
Yeah. What do you think? What are your feelings? What's your gut telling you about how that game's going to go and how we'll approach it?
It's the first kind of real test of the kind of new Arsenal.
The first
3 game Arsenal, the new Arsenal.
It never happened.
Of like a measure of, okay, this is kind of level that we should be at, really. Like, we should be competing with Leicester, competing with Spurs, competing for that 5th, maybe even 4th place. And we will finally see, like, okay, how good, okay, fair enough. Like, we beat Norwich, we beat Aston Villa, we beat Burnley, we beat Spurs, who were awful on their day. But this is a proper test. And there's that game against Brighton where I thought we were up against a team that was very good, and we didn't really play that well. So I'm hoping we can just continue this run of form and continue the performance and the energy levels that we saw against Villa, because Leicester have a very strange team. They're still trying to transition away from the Jamie Vardy dependence, and Patson Daka's come in, but they're still a bit all over the place at the moment. So I'm hoping we can turn up there with energy, with a good mentality to press and win the ball back and tackle well. And then I hope, I don't think we'll get as many chances as we did against Villa, but when we do get them, I really hope we take them.
But Leicester have got they've got a defense which is in a similar sort of situation to Villa, I think, where there's something that's not quite working at the moment. And if we can take advantage of that, that would be ideal, because I think Leicester are, like you say, they're a team that we need to watch quite carefully and consider as someone that they effectively are them and Spurs are kind of that real buffer, really. I think you probably say West Ham now to the rest of that kind of that upper echelon, which
at least that's what you'd assume based on previous performance and kind of how teams have started the league. Are we above them in the league now, or are we still below them? I mean,
are below them. They are 9th.
Okay.
We've got the same amount of points.
Okay.
So they are. I'm just looking at the kind of stats. So, we've conceded a lot of goals overall. I mean, Leicester have conceded more. Leicester have conceded 15 goals this season.
And we got that. Our goal difference is only really bad because of that City game, right?
Yes, exactly. I think we've kept 4 clean sheets in the last 6. I want to say. We really deserved one against Villa, to be honest. That was really disappointing. But but anyway, the point is they concede goals. They still score goals. They've got 15. They've scored 15 goals this season, which is relatively high. That I think that's probably one of the top 6 or 7. But it feels like it feels like if Leicester turn up and we don't, Leicester win. If we turn up and Leicester don't, then we win. It feels like we're relatively kind of even matched when it comes to kind of the overall ability to beat a team on our day.
Yeah, I think if we do win, it will be confirmation that we are progressing as a team, is in my opinion. That you look at the league table, I think it would be confirmation that we've put those first 3 games behind us, and that Spurs itself on its own wasn't a blip of positivity. It was actually a sign of things actually progressing. and we can start to become really excited about this team. The concern is and this is also possible, that if we are quite flat and we throw in another performance like we did against Brighton away, for example, then, the questions will be, okay, well, like, what is this team? Where are we? And are we actually just going to be this inconsistent mess for the whole season? Which is also quite likely. We could get a very flat performance, and we could just go from like the Villa. We could have one Villa game, one Palace game, one Villa game, one Palace game, and just be very frustrating and unable to put a run together. But I think, what's really important now is we take advantage and start to build some momentum, because we've got this game, then we've got Watford before we go to Liverpool. So it's important that we start to find that momentum and just start to pick up wins regularly and build on the confidence that Friday gave us.
Completely, because we've said this season we've not really been a side who's been able to put two good performances back to back, really.
Exactly.
But this has been our best performance, so you're going to hope that we can follow up our best performance of the season with a better performance. And I think it comes down to behaviors, and it comes down to kind of what teams can do on the automatic. Like if we and we can go and talk about Liverpool in a second, because I'm really looking forward to doing that. But it feels like our team have relatively quickly, not quickly in terms of, Arteta's been around for a while now, but I mean, this back five, it feels like they've got very good defensive behaviors. They are doing things quite automatically. The idea,
they're not doing stupid things either.
They're not doing stupid things, and they're just they desperately want to keep a clean sheet. So Gary Neville said it when he was talking about about the Man United Liverpool game, and he basically made a comment. He said, "Where's the effect of not conceding goals, clean sheet? It's a way of life." Because that you have to live that way. I look at those guys, and it looks to me like they live that way. When I look up and see that back, I see that just for passion and how desperate they are. Now, so when I look at these behaviors, it looks like defensively it's repeatable. We haven't seen the attacking behaviors be repeatable yet. We haven't seen, and I guess like you said, Leicester will tell us a lot about that, right?
And I like I said, the reason I was quite happy with the performance on Friday was not only did we defend well, but we combined that with the attack. And actually, although we didn't keep a clean sheet, I was still really happy with the defensive performance. And I won't mind if we lost. I'd rather we won that game 3-1. I was happy with that than if we had, scored a scrappy goal and won it 1-0 with like backs against the wall defending. Like, that's not how I don't see a good defensive team as backs against the wall defending. I think a good defensive team is the team that stops chances from even being created in the first place and stops dangerous possession. And Villa didn't have that. And if that means, okay, we're going to concede one goal because they score a worldie because they shoot from outside the box, and they scored a really good goal, that's okay. I don't mind. I don't need clean sheets, but I need good defensive performances.
You're completely accurate. I was having this conversation with a couple of people recently, actually, where I've been very vocal about my confidence in us defensively at the moment, and the reason I say that is because of what you're saying. So for me, even we were conceding the 2 goals against Palace, I'm not looking. There are games where we've kept a clean sheet, and I've looked at us and still thought, I'm not sure about these guys. But it's that
the Brighton game, right? That was 0-0, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it could be a dogged display and whatever, but we look assured. They just look like they know what they're doing, and I'm not as worried. And you know what? If we do make a mistake at some point, I'm probably going to be able to put that down to just a random occurrence that happens. And like you say, like, if you concede a consolation goal in the 82nd minute, which is a banger, and it was a banger what Villa scored, I don't care about that as long as we've already scored 3 goals. I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever.
And these mistakes, the Palace game, you'd rather players weren't making mistakes like that. But let's be real. 2 mistakes from
central midfielders.
Players who you hope wouldn't regularly make mistakes. And also Palace finished them both really, really well.
Very good point. Exactly.
So let's see. I mean, it's still very early days to identify a trend, but just how, like, I don't know, when this is probably a really bad analogy to make, but you know, when you like during lockdown, when you looked at the COVID numbers and you're like, oh, maybe that, like, I think these numbers are slightly edging down towards like the way you want them to edge.
Yeah.
It looks like we're starting to like become a good team. But we can't quite yet tell. We just have to wait a little while longer to be like, okay, we need a few more weeks data to work out if this is like, are we moving in the right direction or is this just a blip? But I'm encouraged. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, me too, mate. Look, and it was just a really encouraging display. So let's kind of end our Leicester preview with that. Where do you, what do you think is going to happen? What's your prediction for Leicester?
I think we will win 2-1.
Excellent. I'm gonna go with the same result as last season. I'm gonna go for a 3-1 victory.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, but I think the fact that we both said a win means we probably won't win. It's probably not going to happen. But okay, listen, we have to talk about one of the biggest talking points in football, like this week, for so many reasons. And we don't, on the Arsenalholics podcast, we don't often talk about things outside of Arsenal. We talked about the Newcastle situation because that was a big situation. Liverpool beating Man United 5-0 at Old Trafford, 4-0 at half time, a complete, just brutal like annihilation, humbling, like whatever you want to call it. And a manager who has got his job very much on the line. I mean, mate, what were your thoughts about that game?
I just thought it was hilarious. I don't know. I don't think there's anything else to say. I can't believe that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is still in charge. I think he's a really nice guy. But like, what are they doing? Like, what are they doing keeping him? And it just, I think you've probably said this a few times, Raj, which is this Man United team is like one of the most expensively assembled squads in footballing history. Mm-hmm. And to that, they've added Cristiano Ronaldo this summer, Rafael Varane and Jadon Sancho, top players, and like one of the world's best players. And I still don't really understand what they just seem very confused. I don't think they're a bad team. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they can, but they're just a mess, which I think is what it is. And I don't know whose fault that is. Is it the manager's fault? Probably. But like, if you're spending 400k a week and 30 million pounds, you could probably get any central midfielder, defensive midfielder in the world for that kind of salary level. But instead they went and bought Cristiano Ronaldo when they didn't really need him. So you do have to question, like, why is the team being built in this way? It just reminds me of Arsenal when we just went out and bought players with no real strategy. And I wonder if Man United are doing that. And I think, people say, oh, they'll get rid of Solskjaer and get someone else in. Let's just say they get Antonio Conte in. I don't think he can win the league with this team. I think he would need 3, 4, 5 windows to get them close to challenging for the title.
So interesting. Wow. So you genuinely think there is still a quality issue in that squad?
I think there's a balance issue in the squad. Like, I'm not saying that some of these players, like Ronaldo is Ronaldo, you have him in the squad. I'm not saying sell Ronaldo, but I'm saying, would you rather have Ronaldo? Would you rather have 2 top level central midfielders in that squad to go alongside a Fernandes, who's probably not being held back by Cristiano Ronaldo? And then would you add, you probably do need 1 or 2 more, but then you look like their strikers here. They've got Cavani, who I actually really, really like, but doesn't seem to be able to play more than 1 game a week and has issues with his fitness and stuff. And then you've got Greenwood, Rashford, Martial, who probably aren't, elite yet. I think Greenwood's got potential. and then you've got like players like McTominay and Fred, and you've got Maguire, who I think is just so wildly inconsistent. So yeah, I think they're a top 4 team, but I don't think I think they're miles off from being a title challenging team for now.
To be honest, there's not that much more I can add to what you said, because I don't watch Man United for 90 minutes every week. But whenever I've seen them this season, sorry, let me rephrase, post Ronaldo coming in. I don't want to say this is Ronaldo's fault, but whenever I've seen them post that, they just look like a bunch of individuals who have just turned up and have been asked to play football together. Like it just seems really weird.
And we can relate to that, right? Because there've been loads of times where I've watched Arsenal and said we look like a bunch of individuals who've just been asked to play football together.
Absolutely. But then, those times we can probably look at it and look at those players and go like, what do you expect with some of those players? But, you've got, again, we go back, you've got this top goalkeeper, allegedly top goalkeeper, highest paid goalkeeper in the world. I think he still is, left back that I'm pretty sure he was the most expensive left back in the world when they signed him. Wan-Bissaka cost 50 million at right back. You've got Harry Maguire, who was, 80 million or whatever. They've got this
Rafael Varane.
Varane,
did Varane play yesterday?
He didn't play yesterday, but they can't even say they're missing Varane because he hasn't kept a clean sheet since they signed him.
Yeah.
So it's not even about that. Lindelof's there. The central midfield, you commented, said you're right. It is a bit baffling that, they're kind of going with Fred and McTominay, but I don't watch Man United enough, and maybe there is more to it than being so simplistic as to say that when you've got Pogba and when you've got Van der Beek in your squad as well, and you've got, obviously Fernandes, who does start or whatever, when you've got those 3 on paper, at least, those are like 3 expensive and pretty big name footballers. So
I think what really annoys me though is, Man United are probably one of 3 or 4 clubs that can afford to just fix this by spending even more money.
Yeah, no, exactly.
If they want to go and replace, signing Ronaldo on 400k a week isn't going to stop them from signing another 50 million pound central midfielder next summer. Or at what point do they run out of money and say, like, we've spent too much, we are going to pay for this? They're not going to pay for their mistakes. And that really annoys me, because if we had done that and we had assembled this team, there would be that would set us back 5-6 years. Like when we signed Ozil, when we signed various other players, and those contracts held us back from signing new players. I don't know Man United's finances that well. I don't think Man United are going to be able to be held back, and that's the real worry, that if they do get a good manager in, if they do finally get a proper director of football, I don't know when, then they've got a new guy coming in, I think. So when they do finally sort their boardroom out, they can still compete, and that's annoying.
Yeah, I completely agree. And there's so much left of the season anyway, right? So unfortunately, we might have to enjoy this turmoil while it lasts. I mean, I guess that the direction of travel is such that we are level on points now. And, after the first 3 games of our season where we didn't score a goal and we lost 3, to be on the same points as a team assembled in that way, who, after we had lost these 3 games and scored no goals, they've, added Cristiano Ronaldo or whatever. You think, Jesus, how can we close a gap on a team like that? And now we're level on points. It is quite ridiculous. Do you think, look, we shouldn't talk too much about this, but although it's so much fun, but I guess we'll just close it off by, do you think that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be sacked this season?
No. Thankfully. I think they will give him till the end of the season. And unless they start dropping to like 7th, 8th place, I think they'll be in and around. What's interesting now is at the start of the season, after I watched Man United after the first couple of games, I was like, top 4 is out of question for a team like Arsenal. But what it seems like now is Liverpool look phenomenal, City look phenomenal, Chelsea look very, very, very good, bordering on phenomenal. But everyone else is just very good or good. And if we can be one of those very good or good teams, then 4th place might be up for grabs, which is quite exciting.
Totally.
So I think, do I think he'll get sacked? No, but if they are not in and around those teams fighting for fourth place and they start, dropping to like eighth or ninth, then I think there might be a question to be asked. When there's a real danger that they won't get Champions League, I think that's when he might be at risk.
Yeah, and I would have agreed with what you said about that I think thinking they would stick with him. I think something really interesting seems to have happened in the press over the last 24 hours, which I think this is an increasing thing with player power or whatever. But what it really seems like is now all these stories are coming out about the players losing faith in Ole and senior players not thinking he knows what he's doing and that kind of stuff. I think when that starts happening, you got to worry a little bit because some of these outlets that are being reported are actually quite reputable outlets. These aren't random ones. And you wonder sometimes, is that players talking via their PR teams or their agents who are kind of fueling this? And actually those players they genuinely don't believe in Ole anymore. I would personally, if I was a top player at Man United, if I was, a Ronaldo, even if I was a Bruno Fernandes, Pogba, you name it, I probably would be looking at it going, I need to be at a team that's doing better than this. I'm good enough to do that. And Man United are a huge club. They should be that team. I probably would be hoping for a new manager to come in. And I wonder, and Pogba seems to be that sort of player where I imagine that if a new player comes in, he'll probably give 1,000,000% to prove that,
of course.
This is,
Yeah, I love Pogba as a player. I think he's so good, but there is, again, a bit like Mesut Ozil, there is a lot of noise around him.
There is, completely agree.
I just wonder if it's worth saying, like, right, you're great, but actually, for the sake of the team, we would like you to go and play your football elsewhere. Bruno Fernandes doesn't seem like that type of player, but yeah, I do wonder. How I wonder what the mentality is at Man United. I wonder what, if they're really, maybe not, they're just in a weird place where they probably know that, look, we're not good enough to win the title, but we probably are going to get fourth or fifth place. And what their expectations are this summer, because, we were saying at the start of the season, Man United, for the amount of money they spent, they should be fighting for the title, right?
100%.
I guess the question I ask you is, do you think anyone at Man United genuinely believe that they're going to be fighting for the title this season?
Not now.
No. Do you think they did at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think so. They finished second last season.
Yeah, but they were miles off, right?
Yeah, but you think, okay, so, right, granted. So they were miles off. They still finished second, and then they added Varane, Sancho, Ronaldo. You basically added one of the greatest players that's ever played football, and the most decorated centre back in European football right now, and Jadon Sancho, who was
one of the most promising young players in the Bundesliga.
Exactly. So when you do that, you sort of think, well, if you're not going to get close doing that, like, what are you going to do? So I completely think that they should. And I'd say at the beginning of the season, I think if you had a top manager there with that group of players, then I think even opposition, like put it this way, wouldn't have just been Man United thinking that they could do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think something that I've changed my mind on is, at the beginning of the season, I said to some friends, I said, like, when you have a squad that's been assembled for that kind of money, and again, as said, I'm pretty sure. It could be, someone can validate this for me. Someone can tell me I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure that even before this summer, it was the most expensive squad ever assembled in football, right? Mm-hmm. Like the most expensive, not in terms of squad value, because I think if you can find whatever kind of whatever websites do that, can correct me, but in terms of purely money paid, it was already. And so my point that I said was, when you're spending that levels of money, when it's that good, then surely all you need is a basic competent manager to be in there, to just put in very basic structures and very basic principles in place. And the players should just be good enough to be a very good side. You're basically, to some degree, assembling a Galactico type team. I was wrong about that. Like, clearly that's not the case. Clearly that isn't the case. United have, in some ways, seem to have digressed in kind of behaviors and tactics, etc. So clearly need more than that. Maybe they've assembled a squad which are that kind of high profile where you need a manager almost like, an authoritarian, respected Fabio Capello. I don't know, maybe it's someone like that you need.
They've tried it all now, haven't they? They've tried the kind of young up and coming manager in Moyes. They've tried the experienced continental coach. They've tried the short-term fix in Jose Mourinho and the win at all costs manager. And now they've tried the club legend. So
they have.
What next?
I wonder if it's a timing thing though. So like with Van Gaal, there's a lot of Man United fans who I spoke to who would suggest that Van Gaal, although it wasn't great, there were things that he was doing that actually made sense, like in terms of kind of like tactically what he was trying to get them to do, like it all kind of made sense. And with Jose, people kind of use this example, I think, they kind of say, like they got one of the best managers that was around, hugely decorated manager, etc. But like, look, he's been a problem child at clubs, not just at Man United. He's just, he is a fairly unique character. Like, and so, I wonder whether now is the time where you can get someone like a Conte, for example, and he actually gets the most out of players like this because he's used to,
Conte is the obvious shout, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And you would, let's be realistic, if Man United got Conte, you would feel far more worried about them than with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge, especially if they continue to be able to spend as much as they have been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, Chelsea fans still talk so fondly about Conte.
Yeah.
I think he has some kind of image which almost suggests that some people look at him and go like, oh, he is just this complete volatile character. I'm not sure that's necessarily fair. Like, I think he's a Premier League champion, and it seemed like the season that he was sacked, he just really, really wasn't backed and kind of fell out. And he is someone who wants to be backed and he wants to kind of win the big trophy. So, and Man United will back you with money every bloody season.
So that's the thing.
Yeah. Anyway, look, it's fun. We are joint points with Man United. Long may it continue in terms of their decline. Hopefully, like it does carry on, and there isn't a manager that comes in and gives it a quick fix because we are so early in the season. There's a lot that can happen. But look, I think we'll wrap there. Like, who knows? By this time in our next pod, I think we're going to record after Leicester, right? I'm not sure we'll record before Leicester. So we'll have 2 games have gone by then. We might know more about this team than we do right now. Let's hope we can have another positive one because it was so much more fun doing this than it was being depressed as we have been sometimes this season. But I mean, mate, is there anything more you want to add before we close?
No, it's been fun.
Cool. And we should have Mize back in the next episode. So yeah, basically he used to come on a bit.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember him.
No. Don't know.
Proper Essex.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Drinks a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So he hopefully should be back. So cool. So there'll be 3 of us anyway. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your week, everyone.
Great. See ya. Bye.
See ya.